All right. What's up, hombre?
You're on the wrong mic.
Sir, so I can fix that.
I can't believe this service still has not allowed 1080p. It's crazy. So do we know, like, are we live? Did it
We're
work?
live. Yeah, we're live.
Oh, it is. Okay, great.
Yeah. We do need to start off by apologizing to the community at large. We are going through some very, very big software changes right now internally. And one of those changes knocked out our webinar software for the week. We already have it back, but unfortunately,
and our emails.
And our emails.
And our customer support.
And so many other things that we're having to like piecemeal together. It's a really, really big job we've undertaken that will probably take weeks and or months to get it all sorted. So we know a lot of you guys were registered for the webinar this week, and obviously we are unable to use that at this time. So you definitely can register going forward by going to satoriprime.com/register, and that will get you re-registered for the Tuesday tune-ups, and we'll go back to the regular scheduled webinar kind of format room so we can have the chat box and all the other things that go along with that. So we do apologize. Again, satoriprime.com/register to get registered for the Tuesday tune-ups. And I believe once you register once, you're registered in perpetuity. I like to say that, but then softwares always decide to do whatever the hell they want.
Well, tell them, so obviously those are like the headachy downfall things, but tell them why we made the change and why we're excited and what it's going to hopefully offer them.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reason for the change is there are just, every system stretched to its limits. You find it's certain limitations. We were having all sorts of issues, from people just not receiving login to emails not landing in people's inboxes. And so, the amount of support that we were just requiring and needing to just get people login information was just ridiculous and kind of out of our hands. Deliverability when it comes to emails has nothing to do with what we're doing at all, but there is a very fast changing environment right now in what deliverability looks like. All these new parameters came out on what you have to, like Google and all these other giant ISPs know about receiving email. So maybe it makes things better, maybe it makes things worse. We don't really know. So yeah, no need to freak out about anything. If you can't find your courses, there's a new members area. So if you are basically anywhere up from MMI all the way through our level 1 work, so L2 and L3 not included yet, but coming very shortly, you can go into your new members area. It's member.satoriprime.com. I'm sorry, member.satoriprime.com. It's a brand new members area. It looks hyper modern. We're really excited to roll it out. And there's just a lot of advantageous stuff with this new software about how we can communicate with you guys, and especially clients as we're onboarding them, because as you guys know, it's like really kind of tough to find where people are and where they like to be communicated. Like, I barely open Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, for example, but I'm much more available on WhatsApp, and that's what I prefer, right? And occasionally on text messaging, and I'm not great at being in long threads in my emails. I get totally lost in long email threads. I'm like, who said what and when? And it tends to be the stuff that confuses your mind, you just kind of shy away from. So it's the same thing when you're running a company and you need to communicate things to people. It's like, do we WhatsApp you? Do we text you? Do we email you? And then, did you see it? Did you respond? There's a lot of, issues today with just trying to get proper communication at the proper time to people for anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, member.satoriprime.com. If you're missing anything, a program, 28-day challenge, again, migrating I don't know, we had like 35,000 people on a list to a new software program and trying to figure out how to tag them properly and get them into certain programs, we're bound to mess up something. So if for any reason you see that you had a program in your old members area that you don't have access to now, again, support@satoriprime.com. Send us an email. We can get you sorted very, very quickly and make sure you have access to everything you need. And we know it's going to be kind of this transitory process for the next few weeks and potentially next few months as people are getting stuck with that. And if you don't remember any of what I'm just saying, or if you have somebody message you about that, again, just email support and we'll do our best to take care of you as quickly as possible. But please be patient with us. It really is a monumental undertaking, but we're doing it for the long-term growth here and for just fluidity and the little frustrations that people have had with access to stuff. We just want that gone and just to have a much cleaner, more thoughtful process. Even integrate some AI into the back end. So if you really need support, we'd be, hopefully down the line, AI can even give you instant answers to stuff as well, which is pretty exciting and very cool. So we're excited about the rollout, but it definitely comes with its share of bonks on the head as we go. So yeah, the webinar going down, that was unexpected. Our help desk going down, that was unexpected. But all those things are back up, just kind of in new ways, and so it requires some training for everybody from the ways that it used to be done. With that said, I am mildly overwhelmed today.
Just mildly?
Responsibilities and children and running from one thing to the next. I haven't even had time to do my hair or change from this morning, honestly. So we can maybe talk about overwhelm or how we deal with things like that. But I'm happy to take the conversation any direction you like.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. I also think that we deal with a lot of clients, right, from all over the world, dealing with all sorts of things. And I would venture to say that most people here, and you guys can let me know in the comment box, but most people here deal with some sort of level of overwhelm, stress, what people will call anxiety, things like that. And I think the thing that triggers each one of us into that state is different. So the inputs that create the overwhelm, the stress, the whatever might be different, but the outcome is physiologically the same. And when I talk to clients or prospects, one of the things that no matter what they share with me, what I always point people back to is what is physiologically happening in their body. When your body is in that stress response, right? How many of you recognize that when you're in that place, one of the outcomes is you don't sleep well, right? So it's impacting your sleep. It's impacting your mood. In other words, things that would normally maybe just kind of you'd be able to brush off become much bigger. So all these little things are compounding and just getting worse and worse and worse, right? Which in essence also impacts your sleep. And that one particularly with the how things annoy you or upset you, etc., whatever, that also is impacting your relationships. So if you're in a household and you're stressed and you come into that household stressed because let's say whatever, something happened at work, right? That's because we're energetic beings, that energy is going to impact everyone in your household. So whether you have a partner, whether you have kids, whether you have pets, the energy that we are is impacting everything and everyone around us constantly. So that happens. And then the other thing that you probably noticed is it gets really, really loud in your head. So when we get into these states, the mind is doing everything it can to get us out of that state or cope with that state or numb that state in some way, shape, or form. And so this is hyperdrive working, which is also why you're not sleeping well and things like that. So all of that stuff, yeah, someone says, I notice it impacts my kids always. He feels me. This is how most humans operate. If you go to like a normal workplace, a normal corporate, whatever setting, chances are like the second you walk into that office, you're walking into a sea of overwhelm, stress, and anxiety. Think about when COVID happened, right? When I'm talking early days COVID, when no one knew what the fuck was happening and you thought that like if you walked out the door, you're going to die, right? Those first 2 weeks, for those that were sensitive, you felt it. Like the collective energy of the world was in a massive state of overwhelm, stress, anxiety, fear. It didn't matter what was happening. Like every communication, everything was imbued with that energy. And we were literally like pumping that through the collective. And if you didn't have skills or tools on how to feel what was happening in your system, and B, practices on actually how to down regulate that in your system, you are losing your goddamn mind. This is why alcohol sales went through the roof, right? Like
Marijuana
you
sales.
needed something to numb out the noise. You needed something to numb out the stress and anxiety. Now, most people's ways that they deal with it are not healthy. If you're taking any sort of prescription drugs, recreational drugs, alcohol, things like that to calm down, you got to understand, like what you're doing is you're putting one poison in your body to numb out the sensation that your body is naturally going through so that you don't have to deal with it in that moment. Here's the truth though. Once the numbing comes down, what are you back to? Right? Like what you've put on is a very temporary, shitty Band-Aid. And now you're dealing with the same thing again and again and again and again. Because the thing that we label overwhelm, stress, anxiety is a visceral response in the body. You have no say about it. And what's really important to understand is there is not a human on planet Earth that does not have that visceral response. You are not broken. You are not programmed incorrectly. Every single human on planet Earth has a visceral response when their system is triggered from somewhere out here by something that overwhelms the system. So one of the things I want you to consider is that like when you eat food, we have a way like through chewing, right? That we are breaking down a large piece of food into smaller pieces. So what happens? So it's easier for our body to metabolize it. Okay? So this is one of the mechanisms that we metabolize or help in the metabolization of food. Well, think about this. Your nervous system also has systems in place that metabolize energy. And there are certain energies that come into your sphere that are almost imperceptible. Like the way they move in and out of your system are like, you don't even pay attention to them. Why? Because your system has enough resiliency and wherewithal to metabolize that energy. Okay, you guys with me so far? Now there's other energies that come and they're too large. So if like I try to stuff an entire apple in your mouth, I don't give a crap how big you are, right? Like at some point you're going to get to this place where your system can't do anything. It's like it's not going to be able to chunk that down. It's not going to be able to metabolize it. It's just going to like sit there. So there's energies that you can metabolize just like you do food, and there's energies that are too big that you just get stuck. And when you get stuck and that energy is stuck in your system, your mind freaks out, which is why when you're in these states, which is why your mind is like super, super hyperactive, because it cannot deal with that energetic surge in the body. And so what we have invested the last 8 years of our life is learning, embodying, and then teaching and training others to learn and embody abilities to metabolize whatever energy comes into your system. Big, small, knock you on your fucking ass, like doesn't matter what, you can learn how to actually be with that energy, and you begin to learn to metabolize larger and larger of these energies. And so when you can metabolize that, and it just has its normal, phase, which is like it has, the buildup, the peak, the kind of crash, the come down, etc., and then the disappearance. When you can learn to do that with anything that enters your system, you don't go into like hijacked states of freaking out mind and losing sleep and impacting relationships and elevated levels of cortisol and all that stuff. And honestly, like that's what if you ask me like what are you most passionate about today, it's giving people these tools. These are science-backed tools that the only reason I have them and Guy has them is because we've invested time, energy, and money into learning them. Just like you would learn to cook or ride a bicycle or play a sport or whatever it is, consider that your parents didn't know this, your guardians didn't know this. And so no one was there to like literally show you, hey, this is physiologically what's happening. This is how your vagus nerve responds to things. This is how you actually downregulate that. This is what your system needs. This is what you never got. This is how you notice it, right? And when you start to do that over and over and over again, guess what you get to? You create such a resiliency in your body that what most people are dealing with when they're trying to study personal development and mindset work is they're trying to deal with how to manage their levels of stress, manage their anxiety, manage their sadness, manage their grief. But like, you can't manage your way out of it. In the world, it's just hitting me now, like in the concept of managing, there must be something to manage. So if your focus is like, I'm going to learn to be a really good manager, then guess what? You need something to manage, meaning it's going to stay in place. And maybe the time frame in which you manage it extends, but the thing is still there. What I'm speaking to is like, how do you allow the energy to move fully through your system such that it no longer exists in your system? There's nothing to manage. It is just gone. So to me, I'm like, whenever anyone's like stressed, worried, freaking out, blah, 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 like, and I feel their nervous system, I can feel that shakiness and that twitching or that clamping or binding in their nervous system. And they're like out here trying to figure out how to make it stop. And I'm like, well, this mind has no access to what's happening in here. So you can spin these wheels for the next 2 decades and you won't even begin to scratch the surface of what's happening inside. This does not have the keys, does not have the lock to go in here. It just simply does not. In order for that to happen, you really need to sit with a practitioner who has done this work, who can share with your nervous system through osmosis how to actually find these new points. And it's simply this, like when someone says to me, hey, I want to experience inner peace, here's my question. You don't even know what inner peace feels like. What you may have done is you've read something in a book or someone's told you about inner peace and it sounded really great and you're like, that sounds awesome. I love that. But do you actually know what you're shooting for? When someone says self-love, like again, one of these beautiful, super smart, incredible pointers, do you actually know what self-love actually feels in your body? Support. Do you actually know what support feels like in the body to receive and be held in support? And if you don't, then what the hell are you even aiming for? You don't even know what you're going at.
And it's not, and I want to just retort here, it's not anybody's fault. It's just kind of part of the course and how we're being conditioned currently. But I think, oftentimes people imagine that they will come to some great level of understanding in their life, and like this knowledge will somehow lead them to this level of comprehension. Oh, now I understand self-love. but it's not that. It really is a direct experience, and it can only be known through relativity or comparison, right? Or contrast. So it's like you need to know what it's not before you know what it is, right? If you're being abused at home, right, and your initial feeling is, I love these caregivers, they're so important to me, but they start abusing you mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever, you're going to suddenly learn what love looks like when it's not there, what it looks like when it's in conditioning, right? And so the same thing, it's like a child wouldn't know what the experience of falling in love with a partner is like. And you could think about those things, but thinking about those things or getting more information about those things or working with a love coach or all those kind of things is not going to give you the experience of being in love. Just being in love is that experience, and then you have contrast. So what we're always aiming at is working in over a period of time how to condition and habituate the experience of safety, the experience of authentic connection, the experience of well-being. And then what you start realizing is, as you start having those experiences, that contrast allows you to see where you've been. Oh my God, I was really disconnected. I was really alone. But none of us would know that, because it's the glasses that we wear everywhere all the time. And that's what we pretty much see across the board with all clients, is as they begin to experience these things, oh wow, like then they can see, right? They have a relative point of view to where they're at. And it also gives them a place to come back to. They're like, okay, that is what I want to develop more of. Now I've had a taste of it. Like we've all had that food that you tasted once and you're like, I'd like me some more of that. Right. And so it's really about learning the direct experience of things. Names, fine. Distinctions, great. They're useful. Obviously, language is very functional, great for manifestation, things of that nature. But what I believe we all really care about is how it feels inside. What's our inner experience, right? And so when our inner experience is of anxiety, of stress, of overwhelm, we want to know not about how to get rid of it, but how to move through it in a healthy way. Because these things are part of our everyday lives. There are things that are going to happen throughout the day that stress you out. You're never going to get to a place where stress is not at all part of your life. It's an important part of being human, because it also it puts you in a situation where you want to learn something, and we're ever evolving people. Our environment creates stress naturally. Just like stress on the muscle makes it grow, so does stress in your life allow for you to grow and evolve as well. And so that's really what we want to aim at, is we want to get away from this thinking that I can get rid of some aspect of myself, or that aspect of myself is no good. And what we really want to start looking through the lens of is, oh, the lens I'm looking through is distorted. And so in that distortion, I'm acting out of distortion. Like if I was to look out my window and it was just dirty, right? I don't know if you guys remember that scene in My Cousin Vinny, where she looks out the window, and he's given this whole speech about what he thinks he sees. And then at the end, he shows them like pictures of his windows, and there's like dirt and grime and all this kind of stuff on it. Distorted perspective, right? And so if you kind of think of that internally, our perspective has been distorted by our trauma and conditioning and just life experiences, right? And what we want to do is we want to move through those to clean those distortions, so we can have a more clean look at our experience of reality. And so it shifts, becomes more malleable. You're not afraid of what you get, what kind of conditioning you have, or what experience comes through that conditioning. You have now developed yourself as a person that can be with all these things. And in essence, you're very confident you can move through them.
Yeah. So that's, to me, it's like life is going to keep coming. I don't know if your guys' experience has been this. Mine has, that there's like a speeding up. Evolution is knocking, and it's knocking hard, and it's wanting us to move through into this next whatever phase of evolution for the human race. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I don't know about your guys' experience of life, but I really just see it like on this hyper drive thing. So I guess my question to everyone is, what are you investing your time, energy, money into learning? I know from a lot of people that I'm around, what most people invest in is numbing, right? They're not looking to actually like handle the root cause. And when I offer someone, I was like, hey, do you meditate? Oftentimes the same response, like the canned response that I hear from everyone is like, oh yeah, I tried that once. It didn't work for me. I'm like, okay. If you were 300 pounds overweight and you came to me and you're like, listen, I really want to lose weight. And I was like, okay, have you tried not eating sugar for 30 days? And you'd be like, well, I tried that for like a week, but it didn't work for me. I'm like, what? So I'm all for, doing certain things. I don't think anything worthwhile comes quickly. I think everything worthwhile takes investment, energetic, time, money. And if you're not willing to do that, then you really got to take a long, hard look at your life. Because you're investing your time, energy, and money in something.
Mm-hmm.
And if that something isn't giving you what it is that you want, you really may want to just like reevaluate. Just because we've been doing things over and over and over and they're easy and they're habituated, I don't know.
Doesn't mean it's the best way.
Yeah, it just seems to me like we're all being pulled by this natural evolution into something new. And you don't need to look far other than like the political landscape of the world to realize that an old energy is dying. Like it really is dying. And something new is being birthed. But people innately are afraid of change, afraid of letting go of what is known and what feels safe. But old ideas have to die in order for something new to be born. Old patterns have to die in order for something to be born. Old stories and paradigms have to die in order for something new to be born. And I will just say this, an old you also must die in order for something new to be born. And that one's tough. That one's really tough. Like, there's so much tied to our identity of who we are and what we are and like all the thoughts of us. And to let that go and allow for an unknown thing to be birthed. Like no one's coming to you and be like, okay, if you let this go, this is all the stuff that's coming your way and you're going to be this and you're going to get that, da, da, da. They're like, no, you let this go and you walk into an unknown world where all you see in front of you right now is maybe like one little light and a lot of darkness. And you're like, I don't know, I'd rather stay here because I know this misery and I know this pain and I know this suffering and I know this anguish and I don't know what the fuck's on the other side.
The devil you know.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to speak to you anecdotally, and this is from my personal experience and also having taken tens of thousands of people through these kind of practices. If right now inside of your system, like inside of the nervous system, there's blockages. We all have them. It doesn't matter what your upbringing was. Every one of us has it, right? So if you imagine like it's this water bottle, right? This is the nervous system, but imagine this one's full. If it's full, there is nothing else that can fit in here while all that junk is in there. So you're trying to put stuff in like more abundance, more health, more love, more peace, but the thing is full. So in order to put something new in there, you have to go in and find ways to release that which no longer serves. You can't have two things in the same space at the same time. It is physically impossible. And to me, that's like, Guy and I have a simple, I think, priority in the way that we do this work. And a lot of people who are coaches, like they sign up for masterminds and other coaches and this and that, because what they want to do is they want to up their value as a coach so that they can charge more and create different programs and teach people on all these cool, nifty, oh my God, look at this. We don't do any of that. Like, our number one priority is to be the best fathers that we can be. Like, if you talk to Guy and I on a daily basis, it's like, how can we help our nervous system downregulate so we can be more present with our children in these moments, more in connection with our wives in these moments? All this, like everything that's happening here, it honestly just becomes a natural self-expression because we're doing all that work in our own lives to have all that other stuff happen. And for whatever reason, we've been blessed with a way to like communicate that clearly to others so that they can take that information and put it into their own life. But like, that's why we invest all the time and energy. That's why we meditate. That's why we do our practices. That's all of it. It's not to make more money. It's not, I mean, that'd be nice, but it's not to like blow up the business. Like, that all is like secondary, third, fourth levels here.
Yeah.
So there's something, let me finish with this. There's something in your life that's really, really important to you. There's like a number one priority for you. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it is your money and finances.
Which would be fine.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. You just need one lever. You need one thing that you're like, this is fucking it. And I will, till my dying breath, like, I will play this game to make that a reality. If you don't have that lever, then guess what step one is? Go fucking find that lever.
Mm-hmm.
Because willpower will die. No human has enough willpower to sustain the ups and downs of life. Like, it just doesn't exist. You need to have something that drives you incessantly to be able to do this. And when you find that, and then you start to see these like micro shifts and changes that you doing this work and bringing this through to your whatever sphere does, that becomes addictive because you're like, wow, look, I'm literally working here, and then all this other stuff is just happening around me here. Like, all these other people are benefiting from that. And you're just like, I want more.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point, right? Motivation is variable at best. Inspiration comes in waves. I think the one thing we all can have some say over is what are we committed to, and who are you going to be in the face of that commitment actually not being in the world. We used to be part of a training, and they would say, everyone's got problems. You solve your problems. There's just another problem waiting behind it. And then they would say, so stop solving your problems. And they say, create a problem big enough that you can give your life over to, a problem you actually can't solve.
Yeah, an unsolvable
problem. And I love that perspective, because so many of us are in the weeds, me included. Things happen, daily life, daily stresses. Right now, right, we're doing this whole thing, a new thing with the company. There's problems, right? But I remember how I used to feel. Oh shit, this person didn't have this program, and they emailed this thing kind of upset. Like, it would really torment me. I remember like when we first started getting online, I think this happens to everybody who first starts marketing online. You get like your first few leads in, and then like somebody unsubscribes from your email list the first time. I mean, I just remember taking that so personal.
What did I do wrong?
What did we do? Like, why would they? Oh my goodness, and it's like what don't we have control over is other people's reactions. We barely have, forget it. I don't think we have control over our own lives. Nevertheless, taking the consideration of other people and how they're going to respond to things that we say and how we do. And of course, we all attempt to be cordial and civilized and all these things. But if you're anything like me, you have your moments where you're not cordial and you're not civil. And when you're like that, what do you want? You want someone just to give you a break and to realize that you're having a moment. It happens, right? And then we often don't give that break to anybody else when they're being that way. So, to come back around to it, it's like, really, what are you committed to? And look, your personal development. I mean, I imagine if you're here and you're listening to these two guys talk, at some level, you're reasonably committed to wanting to grow, to evolve as a human being. And I don't know that there is a more commendable pursuit in life, right? In service to others, of course. And hey, we can all build, organizations and maybe serve people and stuff like that, or be part of an organization that's doing something good on planet Earth. Again, all admirable things. However, every single action you take, every word that comes out of your mouth, every relationship that you have, right? The really qualitative stuff in life is gonna be springing forward and birthing from the foundation of your awareness and the quality of that awareness. And it's okay if you use business or relationships or your health as a lens to look through in order to like elucidate things in your life, to teach you, to help you evolve. And it does seem like there's this kind of universal principle that like growth is inevitable, whether painful or seamless, whether easy or hard, whether you let it flow or you do it like a masochist, sometimes like me. It's going to come for you. And I think that commitment and that pursuit, and we never want to give you the idea that there is a quick fix to things in your life. At the end of the day, this all comes down to what you're willing to be aware of and take responsibility for. And being aware of yourself and how you react and how you be in this world takes a great deal of vigilance on a daily basis. Sometimes to a painful extent when people call you out on stuff. And even if you catch yourself defending or, stubbornly saying the same thing, a part of you needs to be watching and going, hey, that might actually be true what they said. Mm-hmm. You're being stubborn right now. And like to come off of that and be like, okay, you know what? At the very least, I'm not going to defend. I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to at least take that into consideration, because it is a triumph to come out of conditioning. Conditioning is very powerful, and most of us don't realize that we're doing it. And it's very necessary. It's the reason you can drive your car while talking on the phone and thinking about things. That conditioning did that. Habituation did that. It's great. If we didn't have that, the amount of energy that we would have to expend on a moment by moment basis to do the most fundamental things, it would be too overwhelming for the system. Having said that, there are certain things that we all do in life. Like I know when I get into a pattern and there's like an energy there that's very familiar to me, I pretty much know how the results are going to go in my life. Again, whether it's interpersonal or business or health or whatever else it might be, I'm in that energy. I'm like, oh, here we go. Like back in the loop, right? But it's that ability to be vigilant about noticing that energy and say, hey, catch yourself, go back into your practice. Just like meditation, right? You sit, okay, I'm going to be in alignment. Oh, I wonder what we're having for dinner tonight. Oh, I wonder what's on TV. Back to practice. The kids, back to practice. Oh, what happened earlier? You start thinking about a dream or something that happened earlier that day or that's upsetting you. Back to practice. And every time you come back to that center and back to that practice, that's the practice. But it's really just a matter of awareness. The things that amplify in our work that we have seen, that's more than just sitting here and trying to, cajole the mind to not do all this crazy stuff, is really about the what I think is the biggest hack on planet Earth that very few people talk about, which is learning how to regulate your nervous system. And so like today I mentioned being a little bit, anxious, and it's just overwhelming, the amount of things that are flying at me right now. There's like a lot of requests coming at me because of all the technical stuff, and the team is uncertain. And so all the things that usually other people are handling, none of them know what they're doing right now. So it's all, every 15 seconds, there's like a message. Hey, what's going on here? How do I do that? It's a lot suddenly. So, but as I sit here, and just find my presence and I'm letting energy stream through my body, it's like, it really is an act of surrender in a moment by moment thing. It's not about trying to get rid of the anxiety. It's about feeling it and surrendering into it. And while at the mental level, surrender is an easy thing to understand. In application, it's one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my entire life, is surrendering to life as it arises, when my mind wants anything but the experience that I'm having. What could be more antagonizing to our consciousness than being in an experience that it does not want to be in? And I'm sure you guys have heard us talk about all sorts of practices and doing plant medicine and everything else. And at its most fundamental, truly, that's what it all comes down to. That's what all this practice is. Can you surrender? And if you can't, then here are the practices you do with group, within yourself, to allow for that surrender to take place. I feel like most people come into this work feeling like they're going to get a sense of control. And there are times in life where things seem to be kind of working out really easily. You have the goal, the Midas touch, so to speak. And it's like, oh, I finally have a sense of control. But just you wait, my friend. Until the next thing happens and you lose that sense of control. So is it control that we want to learn, knowing that it's a fool's errand and it's going to be taken away from us? Or do we really want to learn how to stay centered when we're feeling not in control? And the reality is we are not in control. And we might as well stop playing the game of giving us the illusion of control and learning how to sit with and be intimate with and have unconditional love for the out of control. And maybe, just maybe, and I think this has taken me a very long time to get to interpersonally, so you can take it or leave it as you choose. But maybe, just maybe, the things in our lives that look like challenges, we often think this is not a loving experience. Okay? I, like many of you, have had my war with God, with religion, with spirituality. Some of you have, some of you haven't. I imagine to some extent, we've all had our, experience of not so sure about this whole thing. Today, though, what I find is the more I surrender, the more love I get to experience. And what I find is that even the really challenging, difficult, dare I say, even frightening and terrifying things, I now do not see a disconnect between those things and a loving, supportive energy that you can call God or spirit or universe or the one energy. I don't really care what you call it, right? The thing that connects us all seems to be springing forth from a source of love. And just because events in your life aren't going the way that you think that they should, does not mean that the source from which they're coming, or how it's attempting to realign your life or get you to pay attention to something or recondition or evolve you in some particular way, doesn't mean that the hand behind that is not loving, and usually over a long enough timeline makes itself known to be extremely loving. Nothing else but that. And I think that's what we all got to recognize is my mind may not like this experience, but it's not disconnected from love. And if I can remain open, if I can continue to surrender, if I can continue to lean back into that support and notice that love is present, it does seem to allow for you to move through those experiences much, much easier, certainly in my experience, than what I used to do when these kind of things would pop into my life and made me feel a loss of control. And I think if for me, if you can become that type of person, you'll barely recognize your existence. And then furthermore, the more beautiful thing that you get to extend is to other people, that you are now a person that lives in a state of connection and love all the time. And so naturally, right, as you extend that energy and as your nervous system regulates to that, and that's the energy coming out of you, so you will find that everybody around you in your workspace, in your family life, and your friends and colleagues, interpersonal relationships, everybody benefits from that. Everybody benefits from having a human being around that is grounded and in a loving state. And, truth be told, that's the work that I think that we do on the micro and macro scale is, the more people that come to these realizations, the more intrinsically loving this world becomes. And we get to carve out our own little corner on the planet, with this thing that we've called Satori Prime. And for those of you guys who are part of it and have been part of it and have had this experience, then you know what I'm talking about. And for those of you guys that are newer here or very new to our organization and community, and you haven't had that experience yet, commit to having a different life. You can keep doing all the things that you're doing in life, like When someone's addicted to something, the worst thing to tell them is to quit right away. It works for some people, but it doesn't work for most. It's like, keep doing that while doing this work. And you'll see that suddenly the things that you're addicted to just kind of disappear on their own. You won't have to choose them. You won't have to force it. You won't have to make it happen. It's just that as you start living a life that's in alignment, a life that anxiety and stress and overwhelm don't encompass and overtake you, you don't have to avoid those things anymore. And so you don't need the crutches that you've used to deal with them. You don't need the alcohol. You don't need the food. You don't need those things. And, I believe, just as a one other side note here, is that at the very least, you're probably going to gain, and again, I'm just throwing a number out there. This is no validity and truth, or just within my own anecdotal experience. So you're going to look a lot younger, and you're going to probably live, an extra 5 to 10 years. Just because there's, we all know stress is a killer. You're going to make healthier choices. You're going to eat healthier food. You're probably going to, you're going to feel energetically aligned to things. You're going to feel like, okay, drinking alcohol all the time, it's probably not in alignment with that. And it's okay if you drink, but it's like, but there's consequences to doing that all the time. It's okay if you don't eat healthy all the time, but there's consequences if you do that all the time, right? So it's like all these little things that people don't really consider. They're like, I just want to change my mind. I just want to feel in control again. Those are all worthwhile pursuits when you first get going. And hopefully by what Ilan and I are sharing today here, it's giving you a little bit of a taste of a bigger picture of what it can look like. And for those of you guys that really want to taste that, then you gotta start somewhere, whether it's with us or elsewhere. Commit to having at least a conversation, exploring what it looks like to talk to somebody who's been in this kind of work for more than 2 decades and who's worked with thousands of people and could at the very least give you some guidance. And for those of you guys who do want to take that opportunity, I want to remind you, you can jump on a 30-minute call with Ilan. I believe if you go to soulsandseekers.com/Ilan, and just to remind you, Ilan's name is Ilan, not Elon, like Musk. You should probably do a brand rename for yourself, bro. It'll get a lot more. I
also want to say one thing. So I know people have asked me. They're like, "Oh, so I can just keep booking these?" No, you cannot just keep booking these. A one-on-one session with me and or Guy is over $2,000 these days. So you cannot just keep booking these. But for someone, if you're new to our community, you've not been on a call with me, you've not jumped on a call with me, whether through some other opportunity or offering, and you want to learn how to move forward, or the way I kind of explain it is when you go to a doctor, right, and you're like, hey, listen, these are my ailments. I'm kind of the spiritual, energetic doctor, if you will. And I'm going to listen to where you're at and then tell you, why you're there, what are the solutions, and then how we can support you if I believe that we can support you on getting out of that. So that's the intention of the call. But again, I don't offer this as an ongoing thing where you can just book into my calendar whenever you need a little pick me up or something like that. This is intended for people who are serious about moving forward.
Yeah, it's really a one-time complimentary thing that we're doing. Just a reminder, it is $111 to enroll and get on his calendar. And we do that so you show up for the call and are not, wasting Ilan's time. Because our time, like your time, is extremely valuable. And if you do decide to move to any of our advanced work, L1, L2, L3, you can roll that deposit over into the program. So we'll credit you happily for that if you move forward with something with us, okay? So that's the spiel over there. Again, I just kind of want to leave you guys with this thing, work is work. It doesn't have to be hard work, but work is work, awareness. We're all in our awareness from the moment we wake up, and even when we sleep, it's just there, right? So it's it is running the show. Your perspective is everything in life. Your perspective, the same thing could be a joyous experience to just a terrifying one. People could look at the same thing and see 2 completely different things and really have a completely different experience of life. And so much of our perspective comes from our conditioning. And much of our conditioning, we don't even realize that we're unconsciously avoiding all the time or not even paying attention to what it's doing how it's interacting with the world, and the results that it's getting for us, getting, into our lives. And if we take some time to at least think about those things, consider, feel into them, and be like, hey, I keep getting the same result. Is that what I really want? Because what's predictable is what you're getting right now is what you're going to continue to get into the future. Just look at it. Just look at your life. Look how long certain patterns have been around for. Most people can easily track back patterns to early childhood, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, right? It's hard to think about things that happened before that, although they did. So it's probably even before that. And so, like, if that's what's been going on, and you don't have a strategy, a community, someone holding you accountable, something that you're going to learn and invest your time into, to say, how do I shift that? Because today we know neuroscience has proven the plasticity of the mind, right? And I would say Ilan and I are interpersonally, I don't have the scientific research to show you because we don't do that here, but from an anecdotal perspective, also to let you know that your nervous system is plastic as well.
Yeah, 100%.
It definitely changes. Your emotional state absolutely can change. Your mental state absolutely can change. How your body autonomously reacts to stimulus in its environment can absolutely change. Absolutely change. Like, we see it every single day. We had a client recently that her scoliosis was pretty much cured, right, or significantly improved from, like, her back being a question mark to, like, her chiropractor not understanding how that happened. I'm not saying Ilan and I did that, by the way. I'm saying this work had a hand in that, and many other communities where people are teaching things similar to this or in this space will also anecdotally say that they see spontaneous healing for people all the time, but things that science literally cannot explain.
Yeah.
And I think it is important to recognize that, science is the mystical language of modern times. There's plenty of stuff in science, quantum physics, that boggles your freaking brain. It doesn't even begin to make sense. But yet they can observe it and measure it in some particular way. But just because something is not measurable or observable by the machines that we have certainly doesn't mean that it's not within the realms of this reality. And again, we see stuff like that constantly. So we know the magic that can happen for people. But for those people that commit to a process, that those probabilities and possibilities are much, much more likely. Much more likely. So if you're like, you've had it, you feel stuck, you're procrastinating, you're looking for something that's going to make a big change in the quality of your life, we have no doubt, not even for a second, that if you work with us for the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to see a radical change in the way that you operate in this world. And, I think the question that always sits in the back of people's minds is, will this work for me? Like, oh, okay, it works for everybody else, or it works for these people, but it doesn't work for me. We get that. I think that's a really human response to it. Here's the thing. You show up every day, this will work. You show up and follow these simple things that we're going to teach you, you're going to see mega results. And the beautiful part is it's going to get better over time.
Yeah.
So it's just like a toddler. The first year, you're going to stumble and walk. Eventually, you're going to learn how to talk. But like by year 2 and 3, you're going to be like, holy crap, I had no idea. So, we always say that we've been on 2 journeys so far, one for 15 years and the current one that we've been on for about 7 or 8 at this point in time. And, what our teachings now are the blending of those 2 paths that we've gotten to walk. And we can tell you that the work has never been more potent. It's never been easier to approach. And the practices aren't hard and they don't take a long time to do. Right. And Dan Blackman said it's worked for me. Right.
And we've tested it with tens of thousands of people. Like, yeah. I can tell you that the only time it doesn't work is when people aren't working it. The line I say all the time is like, this work works when you work it. Show up. It's an impossibility for it not to work if you're doing the practices. Like, it is physically impossible.
Yeah. It's just, that's what this work does. Whether it's like, you don't even have to want it. We always tell people, hey, you want safety? They're like, yeah. You want authentic connection? Yeah. You want well-being? Yeah. We're like, okay, focus on none of those things. Like, don't even focus on them, because we already know that you do this. It's a natural byproduct of doing this work. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to be results driven. You don't have to have a clear vision of who you want to become and what it is. You just need to know, like, I want to heal, right? I hesitate to use that word because healing for people sounds like resolution. It's not. Healing is about your capacity to be in an unconditional state of love with life as it's emerging and unfolding in a moment by moment experience. That's what healing is. It is not getting rid of aspects of yourself. Those things, depending on the level of trauma in time, will probably loosen their hold, and you'll see your character change. You'll see your personality change, right? You'll see your desires change. You won't even recognize why that happened. It just does. But it's like, if those are the things that you want, you truly want to transform your life, your relationships, money, business, health, which I think we all do to the same extent. This work can easily provide a doorway and a pathway to all those things and make it just so much easier to get into pathways that really, really work for you. So I hope you do.
Can I share something real quick
Yeah,
before we
absolutely.
cut off? Can I share a screen on here?
I believe so, on the
Let me see.
bottom center there.
Just tell me if you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking with the team of like, how do we prove to people scientifically, like that, how this work works. And so David Hawkins wrote this great book called Letting Go, and he created this map of consciousness. And if you see here, there's an energetic log. So he basically created, and this is not to say that like they measured these as like hertz resonance, even though if you look at love, I don't know how many of you guys have been online and did, 528 hertz, like audio, right? So there's like certain frequency. That one actually falls into that one, but these weren't like each one measured. Think of it more of, if you're looking at like a temperature gauge, right? Someone arbitrarily said 0 is freezing and 212 is boiling. Like they created those numbers. So this basically gives you like a really good understanding of where you're at. Okay. So if you're experiencing thoughts, feelings, emotions of shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, any of those, you're basically in the survival paradigm. You're like in animal, this is what I would call like fight, flight response in your system at all times. Now, as you shift up, and our programs are designed literally like to take you through these levels. Level 1, I would say, gets you kind of that place of like neutrality, maybe even acceptance. Level 2 is where you start touching things like love. Maybe acceptance and love, I would say, is kind of more level 2. And then peace, joy, enlightenment, that's all in our level 3, right? So we literally take you up through this map. Now, when you're in love, it doesn't mean that you always stay at love, right? Like I can have the general experience of love, peace, joy in my life, but that doesn't mean that I don't also have vibrational experiences of fear. The difference between Guy and I and most humans is that when they fall into those happenstances that bring them into fear, they stay at that frequency for a much longer period of time. And they ruminate and think about how to move through it. And so they're like kind of stuck in that place. And that's what happens to most humans. Where our ability and our clients' ability is like people can drop and experience it as a sensation rather than like something that hijacks them and brings them there. So you can still experience love and notice fear or anger in your system, but through the vibrational match of love. And then something really profound begins to happen, which is you begin to shift from to me, by me, through me, as me. So we kind of say it a little bit differently, but I really like the way that this person drew it out. So if you're kind of in that survival pattern, everything is happening to you. You're like in this stuck victim mentality, right? As you begin to shift and own your responsibility, things happen by me. Like I make life happen. Like I'm responsible for it all. Then as you surrender, so this is now level 2, you begin to find acceptance for everything as exactly as it is. You now move through this phase of like life is happening through me. And then the oneness, the enlightenment, is as me. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I find it sometimes that it's really hard to kind of like give someone like a here, I'm here, and then in 3 months I'm going to be here, and then in 6 months I'm going to be here. But I can assure you that that's basically what the path is that we're taking people through. We're literally taking you from those survival, fear-based responses into an acceptance, and then into love and peace and joy and even enlightenment. Okay? So, all that to say, take a plunge when you're ready. We are here, open arms, and we will see you soon. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye, everybody.